The world knew Elvis as a music icon wearing rhinestone suits, collecting gold records. Graceland visitors are used to seeing his luxurious lifestyle, his Cadillacs, and his tropically decorated jungle room. But secret rooms discovered in 2022 revealed a completely different Elvis: walls lined with Eastern philosophy books, notes scribbled in the margins of Bibles, and recordings of never-released songs. A portrait of the king of rock and roll that he hid from the world, thoughtful, searching, and sometimes even afraid. Graceland stands as a monument to American music history, a white-columned mansion that has become a pilgrimage site for Elvis fans from around the world. Since opening to the public in 1982, over 20 million visitors have walked through its famous rooms: the elegant living room with its 15-foot sofa, the mirrored staircase, the infamous jungle room with its green shag carpet and Polynesian decor. But for decades, a significant portion of Graceland has remained off-limits to visitors, sealed away from public view. The entire upstairs level, including Elvis's private bedroom where he died on August 16, 1977, has been preserved exactly as it was and kept strictly private at the request of the Presley family. "It's the one place that was his sanctuary," Priscilla Presley explained in a 1980s interview. "It was his private space where he could retreat from the world. We felt it should remain that way." But what most fans don't know is that beyond Elvis's bedroom and private suite, there were additional rooms at Graceland that remained secret, spaces that Elvis kept private not just from fans but from many of his closest friends and even family members. In late 2022, during renovations to address water damage from a plumbing leak, workers at Graceland made a startling discovery. Behind what appeared to be an ordinary closet wall in an upstairs storage room was a hidden door leading to a suite of rooms that didn't appear on any of the mansion's floor plans. The discovery sent shockwaves through the Elvis Presley estate and the community of Elvis historians and biographers. "I've been giving tours at Graceland for 27 years, said James Williamson, one of Graceland's longest-serving guides. "I thought I knew every inch of this place. To discover entire rooms that none of us knew about, rooms that Elvis deliberately kept hidden, it's mind-blowing." What makes the discovery even more remarkable is what was found inside these hidden spaces. Far from the glitzy, larger-than-life persona that Elvis projected to the world, these rooms revealed a deeply private, intellectual, and spiritual side to the king of rock and roll that few knew existed. The first of the hidden rooms appears to have served as a private study. Unlike the flashy decor found throughout the rest of Graceland, this room was furnished simply with a comfortable reading chair, a small writing desk, and walls lined with bookshelves. What surprised researchers most was the content of those bookshelves. "We expected to find music books, maybe scripts from his movies," explained Angie Marchese, vice president of archives and exhibits at Elvis Presley Enterprises. "Instead, we found hundreds of books on religion, philosophy, and spirituality. Everything from the Bible and Talmud to books on Buddhism, Hinduism, theosophy, and mysticism. Many of them were heavily annotated in Elvis's handwriting. The breadth of Elvis's reading was astonishing. Books by spiritual teachers like Paramahansa Yogananda sat alongside works by Khalil Gibran and Madame Blavatsky. There were texts on numerology, astrology, and the occult. Books on ancient Egypt shared shelf space with studies of UFOs and extraterrestrial life. Elvis was known to have an interest in spirituality, said Elvis biographer Peter Guralnick. But this collection reveals a man who was on a serious spiritual quest, searching across traditions and beliefs for answers to life's biggest questions. It's a side of him that he largely kept hidden from the public, and even from many close to him. The margins of these books tell an even more intimate story. Elvis's handwritten notes reveal a thoughtful, questioning mind wrestling with concepts of God, mortality, purpose, and the afterlife. In a copy of Autobiography of a Yogi, he wrote, "The answers we seek are not found in one teaching but in the harmony of many truths." Next to a passage about karma in another book, he jotted, "We carry our past with us always. Is this my burden?" Perhaps most poignant were his notes in various Bibles. Elvis was raised in the Pentecostal church and maintained a Christian faith throughout his life, but his marginal notes reveal a man who sometimes struggled with doubt. "Why do I feel so alone even when surrounded?" he wrote beside Psalm 22. In the book of Ecclesiastes, Next to the famous passage about vanity and chasing after the wind, he simply wrote, "The story of my life." These annotations give us unprecedented insight into Elvis's inner world, said theologian and Elvis scholar Reverend Matthew Keller. Here was a man who achieved everything the world says should make you happy: fame, fortune, adoration, and yet he was still searching, still asking the big questions. His spiritual journey was far more complex and universal than his public image suggested. The second hidden room was perhaps even more revealing. Set up as a personal recording studio and meditation space, this soundproofed room contained audio equipment, cushions for sitting in meditation, and most remarkably, shelves of unlabeled reel-to-reel tapes. When archivists began the careful process of preserving and digitizing these recordings, they discovered hours of Elvis singing and playing music that was never intended for public release. Unlike his commercial recordings, these were deeply personal, gospel hymns, spiritual chants, and improvised songs that seemed to serve as a form of prayer or therapy. In one recording from what we believe is around 1975, you can hear Elvis singing a gospel standard, then it transitions into him just speaking, almost like a stream of consciousness prayer, said sound engineer Robert Taylor, who helped restore the tapes. He talks about feeling trapped, about the pressure of being Elvis Presley when he sometimes just wanted to be Elvis. It's heartbreaking and incredibly human. Other tapes contained Elvis experimenting with musical styles that he never explored publicly, folk songs reminiscent of Bob Dylan, philosophical spoken word pieces set to simple guitar melodies, and even attempts at Eastern-style chanting. These recordings reveal an artist who was much more experimental and boundary-pushing than his commercial career might suggest, explained music historian Alana Nash. There's a freedom in these private recordings that you don't hear in his later commercial work. It makes you wonder what kind of music Elvis might have created if he'd felt free to follow these more experimental spiritual impulses publicly. The third and perhaps most enigmatic of the hidden rooms was smaller than the others, almost like a walk-in closet, but its contents have generated the most intense discussion among Elvis scholars. This room contained personal artifacts that Elvis appears to have collected throughout his life, objects that held deep meaning for him but that he chose to keep entirely private. Among these treasures were childhood possessions, his mother Gladys's Bible, his twin brother Jesse's birth certificate. Elvis was born a twin, but Jesse was stillborn, and school papers from his youth in Tupelo, Mississippi. There were letters he had written but never sent to his manager Colonel Parker expressing frustrations with his movie career, to his ex-wife Priscilla after their divorce, and even draft letters to Presidents Nixon and Carter about his desire to serve his country. What's remarkable about this collection is how it traces Elvis's entire life journey, said Memphis historian Charles Hughes. From his humble beginnings to the height of his fame, these are the artifacts that Elvis felt represented his true self, not the public persona that was marketed and sold to the world. One of the most touching items discovered was a journal that Elvis appears to have kept intermittently from the late 1960s until shortly before his death. Unlike the polished, confident superstar that the world knew, the journal entries reveal a man often plagued by insecurities, health concerns, and existential questions. "Sometimes I look in the mirror and don't recognize the person looking back," reads an entry from 1974. The world wants Elvis the entertainer, but what happens when Elvis the man is tired or sad, or just wants peace? Where do I go then? This room is my only answer. Another entry, dated just months before his death in 1977, is particularly haunting. "The medication helps the pain but clouds my thinking. I want clarity again. I want to feel connection to God again. When I was young, that connection was so strong, so clear. I need to find my way back to that light." The discovery of these hidden rooms and their contents has forced a re-evaluation of one of music's most iconic figures. The Elvis revealed in these private spaces is far more complex than the caricature that has often been presented in popular culture, not just the hip swiveling rebel of the 1950s or the jumpsuited Vegas performer of the 1970s, but a deeply spiritual, intellectual, and sometimes troubled man who sought meaning beyond his unprecedented fame. He knew that his public image was one thing, but his private self, his questions, his doubts, his spiritual seeking. That was something sacred to him, something he didn't want commercialized or turned into just another part of the Elvis product. The question now facing the Presley estate is what to do with these remarkable discoveries. Graceland has long been one of the most visited private homes in America, second only to the White House. The revelation of these hidden rooms and their contents represents both a curatorial challenge and an opportunity to present a more complete picture of who Elvis truly was. These materials are incredibly personal, acknowledged Joel Weinshanker, managing partner of Elvis Presley Enterprises. We're approaching this discovery with tremendous respect for Elvis's privacy, even all these years after his death. But we also recognize that there's an opportunity here to help people understand the man behind the image in a deeper way. For now, most of the materials discovered in the hidden rooms have been carefully cataloged and moved to climate-controlled storage while conservators work to preserve them. A limited exhibition featuring selected items is being planned for the 45th anniversary of Elvis's death, with the full cooperation of the Presley family. Lisa Marie was as surprised as anyone by this discovery, said a spokesperson for the Presley family, referring to Elvis's daughter who passed away in 2023. But she was also moved by the depth of her father's intellectual and spiritual interests. She felt that sharing some of these materials might help people see beyond the caricature that Elvis sometimes became in popular culture. The discovery has sparked intense interest among Elvis's worldwide fan base, many of whom have expressed a mix of emotions ranging from excitement to ethical concerns about whether these private spaces should be made public at all. As an Elvis fan for over 50 years, I'm torn, said Georgina Harlow, president of a long-running Elvis fan club. Part of me is fascinated to learn more about who Elvis really was, but another part feels like we're intruding on something he deliberately kept private. It's like reading someone's diary after they've died. Even if you learn important truths, you have to question whether you had the right to look. Scholars of popular culture see the discovery as significant not just for understanding Elvis better, but for what it reveals about the burdens of fame and the divide between public personas and private selves. What's so poignant about these hidden rooms is what they tell us about the weight of being Elvis Presley, said cultural historian Robert Thompson. Here was a man so famous, so scrutinized, that he had to create secret spaces within his own home just to explore his true interests and express his authentic self. It's a powerful reminder of how fame can become a kind of prison, even in a mansion as large as Graceland. The materials found in these hidden rooms also raise questions about how Elvis's career might have evolved had he felt free to express his deeper interests and spiritual searching publicly. The experimental music found on the private recordings suggests artistic roads not taken, creative expressions that Elvis may have felt wouldn't be accepted by his fans or supported by his management. There's a particular recording from around 1975 where Elvis is playing acoustic guitar and singing what amounts to a philosophical meditation on materialism and spiritual emptiness, said music producer Jimmy Jam, who was granted access to some of the recordings. It's light years away from Burning Love or Suspicious Minds, but it's beautiful and profound. It makes you wonder what kind of late-career artistic renaissance Elvis might have had if he'd lived longer and found the freedom to explore these other sides of his musicality. What's clear from the discoveries at Graceland is that behind the sequined jumpsuits and karate moves, behind the movies and the hit records, Elvis Presley maintained a rich inner life that few were privy to. In his hidden rooms surrounded by books of philosophy and religion, recording music only for himself and preserving the artifacts that meant the most to him personally, Elvis created a sanctuary where he could be his authentic self. In the end, these rooms don't diminish the Elvis we knew, the entertainer who changed music forever and brought joy to millions, reflected Priscilla Presley. They just add depth and humanity to our understanding of him. They remind us that behind every icon is a human being with the same questions and struggles we all face. Elvis just faced them on a bigger stage than most. As Graceland prepares to share selected artifacts from these private spaces with the public, the hidden rooms of Elvis Presley stand as a powerful reminder of the complexity of human life, even lives lived in the brightest spotlight. They tell us that no matter how well we think we know our cultural icons, there are always deeper layers to discover, private thoughts we can never fully access, and sacred spaces where even the most public figures retreat to connect with their true selves. Elvis used to quote from the Bible, "What does it profit a man to gain the whole world but lose his soul?" said one of his former spiritual advisors, Larry Geller. These hidden rooms were where Elvis went to make sure that despite all the fame and wealth and adoration, he didn't lose track of who he really was and the bigger questions he was wrestling with. They were his soul space. In the coming months, as more research is conducted on the materials found in these hidden rooms, our understanding of Elvis Presley, his thoughts, his spiritual journey, and his private creative expressions will undoubtedly evolve. But perhaps the most powerful lesson from this discovery is already clear. Even those who seem to live their lives completely in the public eye may harbor rich, complex inner worlds that they share with no one. Elvis's hidden rooms remind us that there is always more beneath the surface, always depths to human experience that remain private and personal. In an age of social media and constant exposure, there's something both mysterious and deeply reassuring about the king of rock and roll's secret sanctuary, a place where, away from the noise and demands of fame, he could simply be himself. As one of his handwritten notes found in the margin of a spiritual text reads, "The Elvis they see is not who I am. The real journey happens in silence, in secret, between me and God alone." After all these years, those secret spaces have finally come to light, offering us a glimpse of the man behind the legend, the seeker behind the star, the private soul behind the public icon. For fans making the pilgrimage to Graceland, the visitor experience may soon include new insights into the private Elvis. But the most profound impact of this discovery may be a greater appreciation for the complexity of a man often reduced to caricature, a reminder that beneath the jumpsuit and behind the sunglasses was a human being asking the same eternal questions that we all ask, seeking meaning in a life that for all its extraordinary trappings was ultimately as mysterious and challenging as any other. "In these hidden rooms," observed Lisa Marie Presley shortly before her own passing, "I found the father I always knew was there, thoughtful, spiritual and searching. Not just the entertainer the world thought they knew, but the man I glimpsed in quiet moments. I think he would be at peace knowing that people might now understand him more fully, even while recognizing that some parts of his inner life will always remain private, as they should." The king's hidden chambers at Graceland stand as both revelation and enigma, offering new insights into one of music's most enduring icons while reminding us that even the most public lives contain private depths we can never fully plumb. In the quiet of his secret rooms, Elvis Presley found space to be himself beyond the demands of fame. In their discovery, we find a more complete portrait of the man behind the myth.